Hi, my name is Bob. I'm an addict.
Hey, Bob.
And I'd like to thank you for asking me to come up here and share it. Solidifies in my own mind that recovery does exist even in the middle of nowhere. Roger, where are we at again? You know, we share our experience. I'd just like to just give you a little advice if you ever get asked to share at one of these functions. Do not sit in the hallway and share your story with the two speakers who are going to speak before you. They steal your shit. They suck your head. Then you come up here and you sound like a repeat of what they just did. But I got to tell you, I've heard them share before, and after they did that, this was the most dynamic time I've ever heard either one of them share. Are there any newcomers here tonight? Welcome. You're the most important person in this room, because without you being here and without us having an opportunity to carry this message any further, we can't keep it. We have to continue to give it away. So welcome and keep coming back. I just want to take a minute and just kind of tell you what it was like. I caught my first drugs when I was about 7 years old or so. My father was an addict, and he used to drive me around to drugstores. And in those days, you could go in and you could sign for an ounce of paregoric, and he'd bring it out and he'd do the paregoric up. But Jim was talking about it earlier. On the way to, there was that desperation, and then after he'd do the drug, the desperation would pass. You know, for me, I couldn't relate to the drug paregoric, but I could relate to the desperation, because for me, my life goes through a series of desperation and then using a drug. That's what I learned. I learned when I get desperate, when I live a certain way, and before I came to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I did not know how to live. So I used to live pretty much in desperation a lot. So that when I would get desperate, what I knew is that if I did a drug, that desperation passed. I didn't know until I came here that there was other ways to have that desperation pass. We talk about that in our 7th step when we talk about change and humbly asking God to remove character defects. And if you read in our basic text, it talks about having come to a point of desperation, we humbly ask. You know, so desperation comes before change. And I would notice that desperation in him. I couldn't relate to the paregoric, but I could relate to glue. Put a little in a bag and huff it. Man, that was my first drug. Started huffing. Then I learned to huff anything that I could get. And the important thing for me was it didn't matter what drug I used. I just needed to get rid of the desperation. And then ultimately the loneliness and the isolation and the feeling not very good about myself. When I did a drug, that did that for me. And I lived a large portion of my life like that, going from one drug to another. I grew up in the 60s. I was glad to find there's some people in here who can remember that peace, love, and Woodstock. And those were the days of psychedelics, and I went through all that. I went through also trying to find something outside of myself to make me feel good about myself. And I would try to find that in people, too. When Roger shared, he talked about that. You try to find it in something outside. If it isn't in a drug, maybe you can find it in love. You know, I used to chase love or sex a lot because that would make me feel good. But it never, ever really answered that emptiness inside myself. You know, I ended up getting married. I ended up having kids. And one of the best examples that I can give you of what my addiction was like is I would get paid. And I loved this woman, and I loved these children. But when I got that dollar in my pocket and the cop man called, I would drive to his house. And I'd get just about there, and I'd think, no, shit, man, I can't do this. I can't do this. I gotta use this money for other stuff. And I would turn around and I would drive home, and I'd get back home and I'd say, no, man, just a little taste. And just, you ain't going to buy a lot. You're just going to, just a little bit, man. And I would drive back and I'd say, no, man, because if you do that, you're not going to do just a little bit. And I would drive back and forth. but I never, ever went home. I never, ever was able to go home. I always had to cop. Before I found the Rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I never learned how not to do a drug. This disease is a disease of progression, and for me, it never got better. You know, I went to court for the first time when I was 12 years old. I was put into an institution for 3 years. You know, I learned how to ferment fruit. I learned to be a chemist. You know, and I found out I had a room where you could clean clothes, right? And they had carbona there to clean spots. I got to tell you, man, I had got the cleanest mind in Narcotics Anonymous, man. I thought that making money, you know, I thought that love might do it, and that couldn't do it. I thought that making money could do it. I was a poor kid, came from a poor family, excuse me, but I was talented. I learned about computers when they first started, and I started to sell computer systems, and I started to make a lot of money. And I only weighed 185 pounds in those days. I'll give you a guess of what my drug of choice was. And I used to wear Hickey Freeman suits, and I had my shoes spit shine, and I would not let my wife press those creases. They had to go to the cleaners. One time, man, I wanted that line sharp and straight. I carried a gold cigarette case and had a big diamond ring on. Everything on the outside looking real good, but everything on the inside was real shitty. And I have a pair of dirty drawers on underneath all that stuff. You know, I mean, it was just a front, man, and I was a lot of effort to try to carry it, and I could never do that successfully. I never completed anything. That was another part of my disease. I never was able to finish anything. I could start a lot of things really well, but I never finished anything. For me, it progressed to the point where I lost that family, I lost those jobs, and I was living in a vacant house that a friend of mine had. Now, this guy was a nasty guy, and the landlord was afraid to come and collect the rent. So he said, "Bah, I'm moving, so you can have the place. There ain't nobody going to bother you, man, because he's afraid to come, man." He said, you know, I scared the shit out of him a couple times. He ain't going to bother you. So I had this seat from the back of a car, and I would put it in this house, and that's where I would sleep. Now, the utility companies, man, they ain't even scared of anything. Nasty people, big dogs, they can shut your shit all blocks away. You don't even know it, man. All of a sudden it's light, the next thing it's dark, right? Next thing you're getting water, and next thing you dry, man. It's like, so I didn't have anything working in this house, including me. You know, we all had drugs of choice, but man, when you're sick, anything will do. And I woke up this last morning, and I had a bowl, big bowl, and I had wine, cheap wine, and I had some psychotropics. I had some, well, I wrote what I had was Valiums. And so I did some Valiums, and I did this wine, and I managed to get myself together enough to go out. Now, image was important to me, and you have to understand now that I hadn't bathed in a couple of weeks. I hadn't brushed my teeth in I don't know how long. I had hair down the middle of my back. And I had a pair of bib overall painter's pants on, because I wanted everybody to think that I had a job. Right? You know, I had these things because I didn't want you to think that, you know, I was a bum. But not only was I an addict, but I was a bum. Well, I went to this club that I go to, and the bartender said to me, "Do you want a drink?" I said, "Oh no, it's too early in the morning." But as I sat there, I started to get sick, and I said, "Well, you know what? I don't have to work today." Now I knew that he knew, and I knew that he knew that I hadn't worked in months. But I felt like I had to keep this shit up, right? Because, I mean, when you feel that bad and you were that low, we do desperate things to try to keep this illusion going, to stay in denial. You know, I had reached points in my recovery or in my addiction where I was suicidal. You know, in the beginning I could be in denial that I was an addict. I mean, I told my first wife enough times that she didn't believe me that I wasn't an addict. Then she just started to say, "You're crazy," and that hurt my feelings, which is how I ended up on Valium and stuff, because she really pissed me off when she told me I was crazy. And I said, "No, you're the one who's crazy. I only do this shit because I live with you. If I didn't live with you, I wouldn't do this. Let's go to a psychiatrist and find out which one of us is really nuts." You're not going to believe this, but I lied to that man. You know? Maybe that's why psychiatry never worked for us. But I never missed an appointment. Guess why, man? He said to me, "Bob," and I said, Bob, the only problem with you is you using too many street drugs. And I'm going to help you. Take these." Yes, sir. Yes, sir. "And could you give my crazy wife something, too, just to follow her out?" You know, you reach a point of desperation. You know, I hear people talk about being in detox so many times, and I was only ever in one detox in my life. Because when I was out on the street, they didn't have detox. They had jail, and they had Lexington. You went to either one of them, or you cleaned up in somebody's basement. But when I was sitting in that club that day, and shit started to unravel for me. And I thought I was going crazy. So I called this hospital and I said, "Look, man, I'm going crazy. I know I'm nuts. I know I'm going crazy." Well, they said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't know, but I know I'm going crazy. Can you help me?" And they said, "Well, then, by all means, do come in. You know, that's what our job is." So I went to this mental health place. And now I didn't go there to quit using drugs. I went there to get chemically tuned. I knew I was just a little out of balance. You know what I'm talking about. I just didn't have the right combinations. And when I went there, I said, that's exactly what I said to them. You know, I think I'm just a little out of balance here. And I know you all got some shit in here now that, you know, you do this new stuff all the time. I know you got some new stuff that will help me. One of the other things that I had learned about hospitals is that when you're my size, if I would go someplace and I didn't have any money and I couldn't get any money, I would go to the hospital and I would snap out. When you're my size and you snap out, man, people pay attention. And they would yell shit like Thorazine, and I'd yell Demerol, and you better give me a script or I'm coming back. And if I didn't start to talk slow, then I knew that I was getting the real deal. One time they gave me Haldol, man. I did Haldol. Anybody ever do Haldol? I had my tongue come out of my... Hey, this is fucked up drugs. They introduced me to this doctor, right? And he says to me, "I'm not going to give you any medication." I said, "Wait, you don't understand. Something wrong here. Let's talk." He said, "We've got this new thing called a detox." I said, "A what?" He said, "Yeah, we'll take you in and we'll take you off all these drugs." He said, I think you might be a drug addict." I said, "I'm not a drug addict, man. You don't understand." And he said, "I don't have anything else to offer you." Now, I believe that if you're here tonight, clean, and you're an addict, you have gotten a gift if you're truly powerless. If you're clean tonight, you have already got the gift. If you continue to come here, if you continue to stay in our midst, you will continue to keep that gift of staying clean. Now, if you think that you can go out there and don't have to come back here, then go out there and try that. And if you get the opportunity to get that little gift again, to find yourself in this room one more time, then maybe you've come to recognize it as a gift of recovery. Some people call it grace. If you're from California, you might call it cosmic reality. But the thing is, it's that unwarranted, unmerited gift of recovery. I mean, if we are truly powerless, why are we clean? How are we clean? That was my first meditation that my sponsor gave me. I'll get into that a little bit later on. But this guy said to me, that's all I have to offer you, Bob. I'm not going to give you any more drugs. And I got that gift. For whatever reason, I couldn't think of another thing to do. I just couldn't find it to go out the door. So I said, I'll go into the detox. Well, if they thought that I was crazy when I was using, no doubt in their mind when I started to clean up. Because I got paranoid, man. I mean, I was hiding under the bed, hiding in the closet. You know, somebody knocked on the door, and they'd have to peel me off the ceiling. And I would sit on the fifth floor couch, and I would look at these big glass windows. And I would think, if I leap up out of here and I run, can I go through the window, or am I going to do a Wile E. Coyote and slide down inside? Because that's my story of my life, man. I would hit the glass and I would slide down on the inside. And then I'd be all embarrassed and shit that I couldn't even kill myself right. But this doctor had picked up on it, that I was suicidal. And he says to me, Bob, he said, I've got a drug that'll either kill you or cure you. And I'm willing to take a chance if you are. Said the magic word. Drug. I said, sure. You really want to see how suicidal I was. And so I put my arm out and he said to this little nun, get a vein. So then she squeezes me off and sticks me with this thing. All of a sudden, man, I'm burning up. And I said to him, man, I'm burning up. And he looks at this little nun and he said, it ain't working. I said, get that son of a bitch out of my arm. He said to me, you know what, Bob? You don't really want to die? You don't really want to die? You have just never, ever learned how to live? Before I found the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I never, ever knew how to live. And this little nun, who used the F word, said, the only fucking thing wrong with you is you're damn near physically and emotionally and spiritually dead. I said, thank you. When I came in the area that I came into, there was no Narcotics Anonymous. I came in through the doors of another fellowship. People who came to 12-Step Me were addicts who were also in another fellowship and didn't know that we had our own fellowship. But I was in this closet, right? Come on out of the closet, Bob. I said, no, I don't want to come out of the closet. They said, oh, we got a message for you. I said, I don't want no message. They said, Bob, you need a message, man. You're in the closet. I said, no, I like being in the closet. But something happened, man. They started to share, right? And they didn't say that stupid shit. Now, I have been intervened upon by prison counselors, by priests, by family, by well-meaning, well-intended, caring people who tried to give me something that they didn't have, which is a message of recovery. That's what we give each other here. We think we give each other, and we do give each other a lot of advice. Thank God we don't recover by the advice we give each other. we give each other this gift of recovery. But these guys started to share, and something happened, man. They started to talk about waiting on the corner at 4 o'clock in the morning when you knew the man wasn't going to be there until 10 the next morning. You know, they talked about going to a family gathering and not feeling like you belong, right? They talked about going to a ball game and finding yourself in the same stall with another addict getting off that you didn't even know before you got there. They started talking about stuff that I could relate to. They didn't say stupid shit like, well, why don't you just do one? You know, one is like kissing your sister, man. It's a kiss, but it don't, not one to me. Well, some of you have a different relationship with your sister, but that's not what I'm talking about now, man. We'll get to that in 4 and 5. But they suggested that I go to this treatment program, and I couldn't understand why. See, because they gave me this book and said, you know, this is how it works, and talked about these steps and stuff, and I was cured. I wanted to get out and get living. And they thought I ought to go into treatment for 30 days. I said, what? 30 days, man? I got shit to do now. But I got another one of those gifts. The landlord boarded up the house. And everybody that they called to find out if I had a place to stay said no. I wonder why. They must have not been home. Sometimes 3 meals and a bed is a spiritual message, man. So I said, okay, I'll go out there and spend some time. And I said to the doctor, look, before I go, man, can you just give me some Valium on a tape? Just put them on a piece of tape that I can keep in my pocket. Now, I won't take those unless I really need them. You know, I mean, I ain't doing this recreationally now. I mean, I just want to keep them here just so if I get an attack or something, if I get to... Because it was not in my comprehension to believe. I mean, it sounds funny now, but it was not in my comprehension to believe that I could live without that drug. Man, that was like Linus' security blanket, man. Just let me carry them. Just let me have them. Just let me keep something close. What the hell am I going to do if I need them? It was a strange thing, sick as I was, not to need them. But I went to this treatment program. It was one of those treatment programs that everybody was getting well at. They were going around saying, oh, it's swell to be well, you know. I hear the birds singing, and I see the flowers. Now, I was hearing and seeing shit, but it wasn't birds and flowers. And they would say to me, well, Bob, you're not changing. You know? And I'd say, stay the fuck away from me, man. I'm sick. You know, I know you're not. I try to not to use that F word now. But I mean, sometimes you can't avoid it, man. It's just, you know, I'm sick. They said, that's because you're not changing. I said, no, man. No, I'm changing. I'm changing. I may not be too socially acceptable. And I might not have a whole lot of this bullshit rap that you're talking about. But this is the longest period in my life that I can remember that I haven't used a drug. So don't tell me I ain't changing. Stay away from me. See? That's evidence of change. I kept watching people fall out. And I kept saying, dear God, I didn't believe in God. It ain't me. Man, just let me finish this. Because any place I ever went that somebody was going to quit, fail, run away, leave, punch somebody out, it was going to be me. God, I didn't give a shit what happened to those people when they left. All I was thankful for is that it was not me. And I spent a lot of time in early recovery. When you didn't show up, the hell with you, man. I'm just glad that I'm still here. You know, this is a we program, and if you want to get selfish, I got real selfish with this. This is mine. And I want to live. I want to stay clean. This is the only way that I've ever found to do it. This is my program, man. If you drop out, tough shit. I mean, I'll try to give you the message. I'll try to do what I can, but if you don't want it, later for it. I was in this group, though, out there one day, and this guy was talking about resentments and anger. I said, man, I'm a child of the 60s, man. It's peace. I'm peace, man. I'm cool, man. No crazy alcoholic suckers, man. I'm cool, man. Can't you just see how cool I am? I said, this guy leans over and he says something to me about the way I was treating my wife and kids, right? So I leaped on him, man. You know? I leaped on him. So they pulled me off of this guy, and they said, you got to change, man. You got to apologize. I said, no. I ain't apologizing for shit. I'm out of here. So I went down, and I packed my bag. Now, when I say pack my bag, I'm not talking Samsonite, man. I'm talking garbage, man. Little plastic bag, man, I'm throwing my shit in. I have been chased many times in my life. And generally I was carrying something, and somebody wondered what I was carrying. But I started to leave, and this group of people started to chase me, right? And they kept saying, come back, come back. Nowhere in my life that I could recall anybody saying to me, come back, man. So to this newcomer or to anybody else here, man, I'm saying the same thing those folks said, come back. Just keep coming back. I didn't know where to go. I mean, I just didn't know where to go. So I went back, and he said, you got to apologize. So I went into this group, right? And I give this guy an eye, man. I put the eyeball on him, man. I'm sorry. He said, fuck you, and leaped on me, man. And we went around. They said, well, Bob, that showed a lot of change. Hey, laugh if you want. I'll take a compliment where I get it, man. They said, you know what? That's what recovery's about, man. It's like reaching out. It doesn't matter what the other person does. Doesn't matter what that other person does. It only matters about your willingness to do what it takes for you to recover. Doesn't matter whether they accept it, they like it, they don't like it, they believe. The only thing that matters, man, is that you're reaching out, that you're trying, that you're doing the next best thing, that you're taking the next right step. If you're willing to do that, even though it might not look too good, you're going to stay clean. It's going to get better. They bet a lot of times that I was going to leave that program only because I would get all wired up and tell the director to go himself, and I'm getting out of here. But when I was getting out, I found out that my wife had to go to the hospital. So she said, look, you can go to the house and you can stay there, but you better find yourself another place, because when I come home from the hospital, I mean, it's like Houdini, man, you're gone. Out. So I went to the house, and when I got there, on the table was a script. I freaked out. I mean, I absolutely freaked out. I've been 30 days in this program, been to a lot of meetings in that program, and the only thing that I could think of out of that whole 30 days was to call somebody. So I got on the phone and I called somebody and I said, look, man, I got this script. I got the script and I'm sick, man. I'm all wired up, man. I can't hardly see them, you know, that anxious about it and stuff. They said, well, tear it up. I said, no, wait a second, you don't understand. I said, I got a script. They said, get rid of it. So I put it on the stove and I turned the burner on, man. I'd like to burn up half the kitchen, but I burned up that script. When that happened, man, it passed. That compulsion, that obsessive feeling passed. The person said, I'm going to pick you up and we're going to go to a meeting. See, that's what we do for each other. When the message isn't inside of us, when we hit that time of hopelessness, when we hit that time of powerlessness, when we hit the time that it's not within us to say no, that's what we have each other for, man. Somebody else can say no for us, man. When two of us are together, man, that's the message. It ain't by one of us. And you cannot get this message, by the way, buying the book and going home and reading the book or just coming to the meetings and sitting on the fringe and listening to the shit. You will not get this program that way. I mean, this is an interactive program. I was going to these meetings, and this little guy, man, comes up to me and he wrinkles his face all up, and he says, I'm going to be your sponsor. I said, I didn't ask you to be my sponsor, man. He said, I didn't ask you whether you asked me. I told you I'm going to be your sponsor. I said, well, okay. When you're my size and crazy, right? People don't want to give you a ride to a meeting, man. They don't want to get in a small, confined space like a car. It sounds funny, but man, it wasn't so funny in them days. I mean, I was out there. My eyes would be dancing around and shit. I'd be hollering and screaming, carrying on. This little guy said, man, I will be your sponsor. And be ready tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, because I'm picking you up and taking you to a meeting. Okay. I just wanted to be wanted, man. I had that sponsor for 15 years, almost 15 years, until he passed away. He taught me 12 steps, 12 traditions, and a way of life. And that's what he told me. He said, I'm going to tell you how this shit works, Bob. He said, I'm going to be your sponsor. He said, because you're too sick and too stupid to know you need one. So when you guys who've got a little time look around here, if you see an addict sitting here who's too sick or too stupid to have a sponsor, grab his ass and tell him you're going to be his sponsor. So I'm going to tell you how it works. You're going to come to me, and you're going to ask for my advice, and I'm going to give it to you. And then you're going to go out and you're going to do what the hell you want to do, because it's the nature of an addict to do that. When you reach that point of desperation that we talked about early on, he said, you come back to me again. He said, and I'll give you the answer, and we'll get rid of the desperation. But Bob, if you don't take the advice the second time, don't ask me about it again, and don't talk to me about it. Because the only thing, you can steal my money, you can steal my car, you can take my wife, you can do everything, and I can replace them. But what I cannot replace is my time. And when I give you my time, I will not let you waste it. Understand that shit. Now, I'm not going to love you any less, but I'm not going to enable your ass either, man. No, because pain will bring about change. I'll try to give it to you the nice way, but if you don't want it the nice way, go ahead, man. But before you get sick, which meant to him picking up, before you get sick, come and see me again, and I'll give you my time. And what he was saying is, I will give you my life. I mean, that's what we bring here, man. You know, when we're so fucked up and so sick in the beginning, the time doesn't mean a whole lot to us. I'm going to tell you, you keep coming around these rooms, it will become important to you. Because God will give you all the things that your heart desires, man. I came into this program without an education. I came in without a wife. I came in without a right mind. I came in without a job. Today I have my master's degree. I have a family that I love and dearly love me. I have a job that I employ 150 folks. And I still come to meetings, man. Because God will give me all that other stuff as it's meant for me. When God understands that I can handle it. You know? Not when I want it. My job, my only focus is to try to hear this message, to take this message and to try to work these steps in my life, and the rest of this stuff will work out. I watch people come in and get about 5 years. You know, after you're here about 5 years, you ain't going to hear anything different. You know, and then folks start saying, oh man, I got to find another meeting. In fact, maybe I need to find another fellowship because there ain't anybody here with any more time. There ain't anybody here that can give me anything. You know what, folks? Maybe it's time that you start to give. Maybe that's how the getting happens after 5 years, is that your next gifts in the 5 to 10 years, in my experience, comes from learning how to give, learning how to be patient and listen to that same newcomer say that same dumb shit that you've heard say 1,000 times, and you know what the result's going to be. But to continue to offer that message of hope and freedom in spite of that, in spite of what your experience is. You know, it's to continue to come and to continue to try to give and let your growth and gifts and all this other earthly shit to your higher power. And my experience is that he's treated me pretty well doing that. I watch people hit that 5 year or so period, and you stop getting this program with your head. I mean, after 5 years, your head can't take any more of this shit. I mean, really. I mean, if you're just taking it into your head's going to wear out. Man, it's going to start telling you shit, take me someplace else. Focus me on a job. Focus me on an education. Focus me on some other shit. That's when we really hit a different second step. Come to believe. There was somebody that wanted to translate that into another language. And they said to this guy, I can't find any words for believe in your language. What does believe mean? Can you give me something to translate? And the guy said, the translation, the closest thing in our language to believe is to take into your heart. Right? After 5 years, if you're bored around here after 5 years and your ass is weared out and you think you need another kind of a program, start trying to get this shit out of your head and get it into your heart, and then start letting it go back out. You know, I called my sponsor about a month ago. I said, I'm wore out. I said, do you ever get like that where you don't want one more phone call, you don't want one more shit, you're just discouraged with the crap? He said, yeah, Bob. I said, what do I do? He said, grab a newcomer. That's why I got Bob. You get it. You get it by giving it. You don't get it by just hearing it. You get it by living it and practicing it. This guy started to teach me the steps, right? And everybody else around me in that time was working on 8th step. Well, how long you been in? Oh, I've been in 8 months, man. 8 months, yeah. What step are you on, man? I'm working on my 9th step. I'd go to my sponsor, I'd say, man, he's working on his 9th step. Where you got me? He said, man, you're still trying to get in touch with the grace, with that miracle concept, with the gift of recovery, what that's all about. That's what I want you to think about, pray about, meditate about, work on, and just call me every day, try to help another addict, do those kind of things that I'm telling you, take some direction, you'll be all right. I said, no, man, all these guys are doing all these steps, man. Where's mine, right? That's when he gave me the meditation. All right, Bob, if you're truly powerless, why are you clean? Well, because I go to meetings and I do. Was you going to meetings when you got clean? Well, no, man. Well, what happened? Well, somebody told me about it. Oh, so somebody brought you a gift. Tell me about the gift. Write about the gift. Oh, man. You know, get me into this, man. He said, okay, Bob, you want a spiritual concept out of the first step? I said, yeah. Now, I didn't have a job at the time. My life was just still totally trashed. I was living on welfare. And he says to me, I know you ain't going to believe this, but I was stealing. fact, all the guys in my little home group, we were all thieves, man. I mean, just because you get clean doesn't mean that you stop being what you are. All it means is that you've got an opportunity to change what you are. So he said, I'm going to give you spiritual direction. I said, okay. Because I was going to go dump it on all my homies, man. I was going to take this thing and lay it on them like I had some shit, right? He said, if you don't steal, you won't go to jail. I said, man, give me something spiritual, man. He said, listen again. If you don't steal, you won't go to jail. And if you pull up the zipper, your thing won't drop out, man. And if you bathe every day, people won't go. It sounds a little silly now, right? But when I came in, I needed that level of manageability in my life. I heard a guy it's been 2 years since I've heard anybody come into the meeting, and this guy said, he said, I'm clean like 30 days. He said, I have taken a shower every day for the last 2 weeks. Man, I started to cry. Because I knew what the hell he was talking about, man. I know what it is to bathe every day. I know what it is to start to get some manageability into my life. I know what it is not to steal and to get a job. I know what it is to get up every day at a certain time and to go to bed at a reasonable time and only to drink a certain amount of coffee and when to drink it. Spiritual principles in that first step that we worked on all centered on manageability. It all centered on manageability. Do y'all want to learn how he taught me powerlessness? Everybody, if you don't mind, because I love to do this shit, because he loved to do it to me, and I used to piss me off when he did it to me, but I love to do it now. That's what, when you get to share it, it's like, everybody take a deep breath. Now hold that for 25 minutes. Right? Now you know what powerlessness is. Right? So now that you know the concept, then start looking at all those areas in your life where you are truly powerless and where you need to turn it over and you need to trust. When I came in, well, let me tell you how NA started. There was a group of us that used to meet in the back of another fellowship. And in those days, I identify myself today as an addict because I suffer from the disease of addiction, not from the addiction to any particular drug, whether that drug is alcohol or heroin. It's immaterial to me because I suffer from the disease. And for another addict, I don't want that message to be clouded, right? Because when I came in, the message was clouded that way. First we were sober, then we were clean and sober. Now we're just clean, right? But we went to the rooms of that other fellowship, and we would hang around the back of those rooms, and we were like a little swarm, man. When you saw one of us, you saw the other 5 or 6 of us, man. We're just like, we like moved together, man. And people would tell you, please don't share here about anything but a particular drug. I mean, it was different, right? But this guy went up to Williamsport, and he brought back this little white book. And it said, Narcotics Anonymous. Who was an addict? Most of us don't have to ask this question. In 1975. The guy who brought the book back, by the way, picked up. So you can carry this message and not get it. Because you're going to hear some people doing this head shit, and not get it in your heart. his wife called us and said, would you guys go over and check on him? Because I had to move out because he was really getting crazy, and I got afraid. She said, would you guys go check on him? So we went over to get him. And when we went in, we found him dead. Shoulder holster on, foaming at the mouth. Sometimes we forget that this disease kills. We forget it, man. We get locked up into who's doing what and whether we should have hazelnut or regular coffee, you know. We get locked up in the nonsense of it, and we overlook the fact that this disease kills. In those days, we didn't have literature except for this little white book. We used to scrape up some money, and we'd call Jimmy and say, man, send us some books. And then we wouldn't get the books for 6 months, and we'd swear, man, dope fiends are stealing our money and shit. But my sponsor, they tell me, no, man, we were just waiting to get enough of that money in so that we could get a printing and then get it out. Because in those days, Narcotics Anonymous wasn't as flourishing as it is today. I did not believe in God when I come here. I mean, my experience with God was all negative. It was all dogmatic. It was all oppressive. I knew about, on my best day, in the religion I was raised in, I always had one foot in hell. That was my best day. I never learned about the love of God until I met my sponsor. And he started to show it to me through him. Not what he said, but the times he picked me up for a meeting, the times he invited me into his home, the times that he sat with me and talked to me, the times that he taught me how to touch when I'd see him touch his wife, how to have a conversation with a woman besides trying to grab her ass, you know, how to live. And he showed me God. And he used to say to me, Bob, you don't see God, do you? I said, no. He'd say, well, look here, man, look at this. Think this guy's going to stay clean? I said, no, man, somebody's going to be using it in a couple of days, man. I know him. God'd be clean 3 days later. Say, man, what about that? It's all coincidence, man. He said, no, Bob, it's God working, man. It's God working. He said, how many yellow cars did you see on the way here today? I don't know whether anybody can answer that. How many yellow cars you all saw on the way here? But if I were to ask you tonight, on your way home, to tell me how many yellow cars you see, you'd be able to tell me, wouldn't you? Works like that coming to meetings. You come to meetings, you want to seek recovery, you want to find recovery, you want to find a higher power, you want to find a sponsor, you want to find God, you want to find the gifts of recovery. You will find it here if you seek it. If you don't look for it, if you come in here looking why you don't belong, why you don't need to be here, why the judge is wrong, why your old lady should have let you go someplace else, why you don't need, why this guy doesn't really have this shit, why this guy's bullshit, and why this guy's sweet, what this guy's an old lady, or who you can get to lay you tonight, you will find it here. Because you will find what you seek. And he taught me to start to seek this higher power, man. To start to see it in these rooms. People see God in a lot of different places, man. I see God most clearly in my life in the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous. This is where I see God working the most, man. When I see people's lives being transformed, being changed, man, then you can't deny it. So if you don't believe it, you just come here and sit here and watch it long enough. In the first step, you cannot will surrender. You can't say, oh, I surrender, I give up, I'm not powerless anymore, I've got this shit. I don't know anybody that can will a spiritual recovery. I haven't seen that happen. I mean, I've tried it. If you keep coming back and just keep listening and get a sponsor and call your sponsor, call another addicted person, give somebody a ride to a meeting, volunteer to make the coffee, hand out a piece of literature, go to a detox somewhere, sometime, you're going to come to believe. And I couldn't tell you how it happened to me other than it happened. Right? It happened to us. My sponsor said, then, what kind of man do you want to be? What? Yeah, what kind of man do you want to be? This is make a person time. This is a new beginning. This is a time for change. What kind of person do you want to be? Well, I don't know. That's why you had me, Bob. Because I'm going to help you. That's why we have a sponsor, to help us define the kind of man we really, really want to be. My sponsor used to point out things. I don't have the answers. If people come to me and ask me a lot of shit, and you get here a little while, people get to know your name, people come up and think you got some kind of special status here. That's bullshit, man. It ain't like that. But what you do have is if somebody comes to me and they say, well, Bob, I want to work on patience. I say, well, look, man, that ain't my strong suit. But this guy I sponsor, John, he is the most patient person that I know. I want you to go talk to John. Go ask him, man, how he stays so cool when he's teaching all these people the same dumb shit and they ain't getting it. You know? How does he keep from freaking out? How do you manage your money? Don't ask me that one either, folks. You know? My answer to that is to try to make enough so that I don't have to do all that other shit. We all find, by the way, we all try to find what works for us. I mean, seriously, we all try to find, and that's what he said. We'll all find what works for us. So go ask people. I'll point you in the direction of people who have these spiritual gifts that you might want to consider making a part of you. I'm a compilation of a whole lot of people. I'm a compilation of Smokey. I'm a compilation of Dick and Denny and Bob, the people that I've sponsored, and the men that I have come into contact with have all formed who I am today. We were talking earlier about religion. I had some real anger and real resentment and real blockage about understanding God. This sponsor said to me, you will go back and take instructions in that religion again. I said, are you crazy, man? What's this got to do with the steps? He said, you can't get behind it, man. You can't let go of that anger. Go do it. That's the other way we come to believe. Because I used to say to him, well, I don't see it that way. And he'd say, well, I know that. That's the insanity part. That you don't see it. But you do it. You humble yourself enough to take my direction and do what I tell you. When the change happens, you'll see the wisdom. You don't see the wisdom now, so you've got to humble yourself, Bob, and you've got to take my direction until you see it. Until you see it. You've got to humble yourself to take the direction until you come to believe it. I went and I did that. I did not join that religion again. But what it did is it helped me deal with the anger and resentments and get a new perspective. It helped me see it with a new eye. And what it did is it opened me up to being able to grow spiritually and to hear concepts about God today. And to not have to tell you, well, you've got to have the same God that I have, or you've got to believe it the same way I do, or you've got to have this certain sign, you know. It started to make me open-minded. Started to open my mind. That's what my sponsor did for me. He opened my mind to new ways. If you continue to do the same dumb shit in the same dumb ways and get the same dumb results, and you don't understand insanity, get with a sponsor and talk about the second step, because you'll come to believe. In my third step, he taught me about making a decision to be the kind of person that I wanted to be, and not to shortchange myself, but to try to live a certain way. Because out of creating that person, I created an understanding of a God. Maybe not your understanding, but I have a God that works for me. Now, I have the ability with 2 and 3 to say, look, I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to the furniture store. I'm going to try to buy the furniture. I'm going to try to do that. But if they turn me down, then God doesn't want me to have that furniture right now. And I don't have to dope fiend to try to get it. I don't do it. All I got to do then is accept it. God's got something better in mind for me. And if I give it time, it will unfold. But we don't like to ever give anything time, man. We just want it now. Bang. Why? I think because I used to go from crisis to crisis, man. I used to go from like nervous breakdown to nervous breakdown. Jail to jail. So in between, man, it was like, get it quick, get it all you can, grab it, shove both pockets full and go, man. Recovery is not the short game. Recovery is the long game. That's the other thing he taught me. It's playing for the long game. It's setting the goals. It's knowing where you want to be 5 years from now. The other part of that is it's one of them little spiritual quirks, right? It's like, I know where I want to be, and I know what I want to work on, and I keep taking that next right step, and I keep trying to practice those principles right here today, try to be that kind of person today, try to share my recovery today, and sometimes God changes my direction, and I'm going down a whole other direction before I wake up and come to realize it. I mean, I work with kids today. When I took my third step, I said, God, take my will in my life. I mean, I had some ideas of what my will in my life was. They are nothing like what my life is today. Because I wasn't good enough for myself. If I would have got what I wanted and deserved, I'd have a whole lot less than God's given me today. I just had to let Him give me in His own measure and in His own time. And I had to be open and willing to just do the kinds of things in recovery and let that other stuff fall. I told you earlier I was a bum. I didn't think I would be able to work again because I didn't think that I could ever have that consistency in my life to be able to get up at a certain time, go and do something, and I had a terrible struggle with that. And I finally got a job, and I kept that job, man. But then the funding for that job dried up. And God works in strange ways. I was taking somebody into a detox, and I said to this nurse at detox, look, I'm losing my job. So, I won't see you anymore because my job's ending, and I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I'm really guess I'll probably have to go back to marketing or doing something in computers or something. She said, no, you won't. She said, my husband's the deputy secretary of children and youth, and you got a job. I said, what? I said, I never worked with you. It don't matter, Bob, but you got the job. I said, now you're it's political, Bob. You got the job. Oh, man, I got this job. I went over to this prison, and I interviewed for this job. And they didn't give me the job. Right? Oh, man. I went into all my God doesn't love me kind of things. God doesn't really exist again. There is no God shit again. Because if God didn't do what I wanted when I wanted, I could throw Him out the window, that concept out the window. I didn't have any faith, the ability to sustain a belief in the hopes that it would come to pass. But a week or so later, man, they called me and they said, look, Bob, we saw that you have a strong business background and that you're recovering and that you've been in some institutions yourself. So we want you to work with some violent children. And we want to introduce you to a black guy. And if the two of you guys can get along, we'll give you $250,000 to start a program. I said, I love the brother. Nothing, no racial shit in my background. No, I love the brother. We spent 3 days together. I'm going up in my leisure suit. chest open. I was a little thinner then. Here he comes, man. The dashiki, skull cap with the freedom colors, and I'm thinking, oh shit, man, what are we doing? All right. We've been together 20 years. Almost 20 years. We started with one program for violent children, and today we have 10. If you believe that you're following God's will, God will multiply shit and make it happen. Doors open for us. There's just not any doubts in my mind. Because my sponsor taught me to see the doors open, taught me to recognize God working in my life, and taught me not to stumble myself up, not to put my will in front of God's will anymore, and to let that happen. These guys I work with, by the way, God also, it's not only in the rooms that I've learned. Man, I have learned so much from the men that I work with. That it's what you seek anywhere you're going to find. In my 4-step, he taught me to call my life into question against what I believed God wanted me to be. Not what somebody else thought God, felt like I ought to be. Now, I got to tell you though something. My list of what I thought God wanted me to be in the beginning was about like this. God didn't have very high expectations for me in the beginning. Because I could do a lot of crazy shit in the beginning that I could not do today without feeling real bad about it. Because since that 3rd step and I turned that will in, then God started flicking these switches in my head. It ain't all right for me to go playing around with my wife today. It ain't all right for me to steal today. It's not all right for me to do a lot of things today that I could do back in the beginning because God keeps expanding that thing for me. Have any of you been in relationships where you say, what the hell's going wrong here? Is it... Silly question. Is it her? It's her. I know it's her. She's doing it, right? No, wait. No, I'm an addict. It's me. It's got to be me. I'm fucking myself up again. I'm doing this stuff to myself again. I know what it is. I know it's her. It's her. It's got to be her. And get so confused you don't even remember what it is that started the whole thing. My sponsor said, "Bob, it's real easy." What? Yeah. You can come out of that confusion just like that. I said, how? I said, do a 4-step. Are you living the way you believe your higher power intends for you to live in this situation? Yeah, but she's... No, she's. Personal. Are you living the way your God wants you to live in this situation? Well, there might be a little thing that I'm doing wrong there. So then let's pull it in line. Let's work on that. He said to me, how you doing? I'd say, fine. He said, we can't fix that. What ain't fine? Well, man, when she says something, I aggravate her because I know what her hot button is. And when she starts playing with me, I push it. Do your inventory. Once you do your inventory, Bob, then you have a way to behave. You have a way to act. You have a sense of yourself again. You don't have to stay muddled and confused and wrapped in anger and lust and all that shit. All you got to do is pull yourself back to that way that you believe God wants you to live and try to live that way. And if you're having trouble trying to live that way, talk about that in meetings. Come see me. We'll work on it together. And the greatest thing is if you're doing that, then you can say to God, she's your problem because I'm doing my bit. You can turn it over. You can turn that stuff over to this higher power. In the 5th step, and I did one of those elaborate 5th steps, dug every piece of deep dirt that I could think of up and out. After I was done with that, he said to me, what are you still afraid of? What are your fears? Well, but I just did my fifth step, man. I told you all this stuff. I'm feeling better, man. Let me feel good now. I just did this fifth step. I'm on this thing, man. Don't tell me, ask me something dumb now. Like, what am I still afraid of? Because I ain't ready to do 6 yet. I ain't ready to deal with my character. He taught me that character is that thing that's identified. If I live with you for 24 hours, I'll know whether I can leave my wallet on the dresser when I go to take a shower or whether you'll be in it. Because I'll know your character. I mean, we read each other's character real quick. It's all the predictable things about ourselves. It's the predictability of our behavior. Man, some of my behavior I hung on to for a long time until I got desperate. And then humble comes real easy. People say, well, I don't know how to be humble. Get desperate and don't use. And it's an easy step into humble. Please, dear God, help me. In the beginning, when I was going through all that, I don't believe in God. And he said, well, you need to learn to pray. I said, I don't know how to pray. He said, Bob, look, don't you ever say, dear God, send me a woman. I said, I say that a lot. He said, well, Bob, that's a prayer. Now we just have to expand on that concept. Dear God, please remove this from my life. Please don't let me pay this price one more time. Please don't let me lose one more job because of my anger or one more relationship. Please remove these defects of character from my life. We don't see our defects of character when everything is going good. It's real easy to mask them. But when we get that little grip gut thing, woo, character defect. Oh, I feel bad. Character defect. Time for change. See your sponsor. Work the steps. Pray. Pray the same way that we prayed when we came into these meetings in the beginning. And we used to listen to people being well and being happy, and I was sitting there saying, oh, gee, and then now, man, I come to the meetings and I say, hey, man, I'm happy, and it's good, and I see guys sitting back there saying, oh, in God's time. Those character defects will be removed. We don't remove them. People say, oh, I'm going to work on removing this. There's a balance between working on removing it and having God remove it. You can work on it by yourself all day long, but if you don't involve God in it, it ain't going to happen. He taught me in 8 and 9 that I have alienated about everybody in my life. I mean, anybody who met me in my active addiction has got a resentment. I gave it to him for free. Well, maybe not for free, because if you steal something from them, that ain't exactly free. He taught me that saying sorry just isn't enough. I used to say, I'm sorry all the time. He taught me to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I have done you wrong. You were right, and I did you wrong. And I'm going to try my best not to do you wrong again. If I get into an argument with my wife in the morning, so it makes me toast, and I say, oh man, this toast is cold. And we have a little blow up, and I go to work, and I have a good day, and I'm mellow, and I come home, and I had a little time, I put a spiritual tape on, and I get home, I feel real good, and I say to her, oh honey, I'm sorry. She threw the toast at me, man. But if I walk in there and say, hey babe, I was wrong this morning. I had no right to treat you that way. I'll try not to do it again. She'll probably say,
Oh, that's okay. It wasn't nothing. But if I do the old, I'm sorry, he taught me that in 8 and 9, those are steps to bring our relationships back into togetherness again. Right? To reunite broken relationships with our families. I mean, we live lives. Our disease is a disease of loneliness and isolation. And 8 and 9 takes us out of loneliness and isolation, not only in the rooms, but in the lives that we live outside the rooms. And it's a principle so that when we make a mistake with somebody, we have a method of repairing the relationship. So that just because we have a spat in our relationships, that's not like, I'm out of here. You ever do that in your relationships? Hey, man, I'm out of here. You did me wrong, I'm out. It's like how we work it out. You know, it's like admitting we're wrong and truly wanting to cement the relationships again. You know, this is a terrible disease. I have a son who came to live with me, and he's an addict. And I know I tried to get him to go to meetings, and he wouldn't go, but I gave him everything that I had. And he started to get a little manageability in his life, but took my truck one Sunday, and I had a guy from Chicago who was in visiting with me, and this kid comes home, and he's all screwed up, right? I said to him, man, take the keys and put them on the hutch or the dresser. So he takes the keys, man, and he goes, boom, slams them down. And he says to me, you don't think I remember what you were like, but I remember what you were like. I know better than to say the next thing, but I can't help it. I said, then what was I like? And he started to tell me what it was like for him to live with me in my addiction. Man, he wanted to hurt me, and I'm going to tell you, man, that hurts. I mean, that hurts. I was crying, the guy's father was crying, my wife's crying, the kid's crying, everybody's crying. I said to him, you know, you're right. You're right. I know that you suffered a lot of pain as a result of my addiction. You know, I got to tell you, my grandfather was an addict. Alcohol was his drug of choice. My father was an addict. I'm an addict. And you're an addict. The only difference is that they died in their active addiction. You and I have a chance to live clean with this disease, to live a new way. And your answer is in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. If I could give this to anybody, I would give this to this child. I can't choose who gets it. He doesn't have it today. He doesn't have it today. He's still out there. So, man, pray for him for me, if you would. I had to put him out. He ended up going to jail. Now he's just trying to binge it, right? He knows. He's out, watch it, man. You see this disease, it screws you up, man. Because he can't get that total abstinence concept. I got a daughter. I had to put her out, too. Same kind of thing. She celebrated 2 years. Picked up in a relationship. Went back out. Now she's back, and she just celebrated a year this past Christmas. Now she's got a sponsor, and she's working steps. Right? You can't. All we can do, this is an hour message to give to any particular person. All we can do is deliver it. It's up to God who gets it and who receives it. You know, my sponsor taught me in 10, 11, and 12 that by the end of 9, you have pretty much made most of the major changes in your life that you're going to make. And when we do step 4 and take our inventory, that doesn't mean we don't ever call our life into question until we get to 10 again. He taught me to use the 10th step to be vigilant, so that before I walked in this room, I can clear my head, that I can get rid of any nonsense that's going on in my head, so that when I walk in that door, I can still seek a message of recovery for myself, and I can still give a message of recovery for somebody else. That's what he taught me as the purpose of my 10th step, to be vigilant in the protection of my own recovery, but to clear my head enough so that I can recognize people in the room who need what I have to give, because I can only keep what I have by giving it away. So if you walk in this meeting looking about who's going to do who, or who's going to be what, or what nonsense you're going to hear, or you're going to get that, man. But if you come in here looking about who you want to give this message to, you're going to find somebody in this room tonight before you leave that you're going to give that message to, you're going to give that hug to, you're going to give that word of encouragement to, you're going to give this gift to somebody else. And in doing that, we keep it. He taught me in the 11th step that it's a step of meditation. It's a way to draw closer to this higher power. He gave me a quote from a monk that said, "Our hearts were made for Thee, O God, and they will not rest until they rest in Thee." This is a way in that 11th step for me to rest. When all this stuff in the world is going, when school's going, the job's going, my wife's going, the money's going, the traffic's going, the horns are blowing, it's a way for me to dwell in a quiet place with a God of my own understanding and to be nurtured. It's also two other things. I've been working real hard, my own recovery on this 11th step. Got to tell you, you get out somewhere around 15 years or so, you got the family, you got the job, you got the money, everything's going good, and you wake up one day, and all of a sudden you want to go to Iowa, man. It's like, it's not there. I don't know what it is, but I've shared this with a lot of guys, and I'm not talking about airhead men, I'm talking about men who have their lives together, who have long-term recovery, who reach this point where nothing suits. It's like a tack in your ass, man. You can't sit. And the only way that I could get peace of mind was to be in prayer and meditation, and I hated to have to go into prayer and meditation to do that, because I wanted to be able to look at my wife in that relationship and draw from it. I want to be able to look at my job and draw from it. I wanted to be able to look at that car and say, man, I really arrived. I want to be able to say, man, I've got some security in my... And none of that works. And the only way that I can get peace of mind is to look at that relationship with my higher power and to draw from it and to redefine my whole relationship with my higher power again. And after I've had what I thought was a great one, went in for 15 years, all of a sudden, man, I'm going through all this head stuff, because it goes from your head into your heart, I believe, somewhere around 5, or you leave, or you go into another fellowship looking for it, or you go into a school, or you go into a job, and somewhere around 15, man, it goes into your soul, because you start to have to deal with people that you love dying. I've lost 2 friends that I have recovered with, that I have walked this road with in the past 2 years, who have gone on. But I've got to tell them both, if they're listening, that clean time here on earth counts up there too, man. Because I know I'm going to go that same path someday. But I have to deal with the pain and the suffering and the separation, and starting to change that it's not the things here that are important. It's something within my spirit. It's something within my soul, and it's something redefining in my relationship with my higher power. And I wish I could be real clear on that, because I'm really still in process with all that. But if it was not for my 11th step, and my belief is that those people God wishes to use, He draws closer to Him. If you're going to carry that message to another suffering addict, go into some prayer and meditation before you carry that message. Get in touch with that higher power, that person who gave me my gift, so that I can give that to somebody else. That's what my 12th step is all about. That's what having had a spiritual awakening. You don't get a spiritual awakening until having had one. We get the opportunity, the blessing and the gift of being able to share this with another addicted person. For powerless addicts, we carry the most powerful message that another addict can hear, and that is the lie is dead. We do recover through God and the 12 steps and 12 traditions of Narcotics Anonymous, and thanks for letting me share that.